First of all, I must congratulate you for that keynote, sir. It was like a masterclass for many of us. I hope we made copious notes to go back and refer to all the seminal work that you referenced during the introductory session. So we have a power pack panel, and no pressure to the panelists. I'm sure this is going to be a lot of takeaways on what we're going to discuss about future of banking, digital technology, transformation, and so forth. Also, kudos to the Mumbai spirit, to all of you guys for turning up. I know, there was a lot of rains on the other part of the city. It was a little difficult for me to make it, but I just trusted the auto rickshaw driver to, get me to the venue on time. So I want to start with an evolutionary question, if you will allow me. Banking started with computerization. We know that nationalized banks started interconnecting computers back in the ledger days. There was no core banking and microservices architecture and that kind of stuff. We were still doing ledger accounts. Then we moved to digitization, right? A lot of paperless story was being sold in boards of banks, and many banks did actually become paperless. Then came the world of robotic process automation, right? People said, okay, can we use technology to automate some of the manual work and increase efficiency and reduce errors. Today we're talking about green banking, right? And I actually did look up what is green banking, ESG, responsible banking, and so forth, right? And what I realized is many banks today are, green. Like, for example, SBI has a green banking policy. Yes Bank, I'm sure Mahesh will touch upon, has done some work in the community development space. We've seen IndusInd deploy solar-powered ATMs, and so on and so forth. So I want to ask the panel, and this is going to be in no particular order. I'll start with Amit to first comment on what are these green banking initiatives. How does he see technology participating in clean initiatives contributing to our overall climate goals? Amit?
Yeah, good morning everybody, and thank you very much. Let me start with a disclaimer. All my views are personal. They do not represent any regulatory or kind of views itself. So to answer your question, most of the banks have taken a path wherein we should be able to sustain our environment itself. And most of the banks have started doing this thing, not as of today, but for some time back itself. And they have been taking different initiatives. And as we move forward, to reduce, there are two aspects of it. One is why we should adopt any green kind of things which should help the bank. First thing is that the energy conservation, which is going to have an impact on the cost itself, which is a primary reason why banks are trying to do it. The second thing is that the technology sustenance which they would achieve by using all these green initiatives. So you would see in coming days, and banks also want to take a technology path wherein they are being shown, they were able to show themselves as, much more technology driven than of being an older way they have been doing things. So you would see all such things happening in future, and lot many banks are thinking in those direction. And just to touch upon a point, this is not only and they are very serious about it. They're not doing it for showcasing it to somebody. They have got a great concern with respect to that they should be able to use IoT, etc., so that a customer experience can enhance. So if you walk into a bank every time and consider yourself being a HNI customer, why you have to introduce yourself every time to a teller itself, right? So in coming days, you would see that technology adoption coming into picture. First, banks have started taking baby steps toward that direction, but now they are trying to go full throttle to give a 360-degree customer experience. And India is a place where we would see that kind of a impetus being introduced by banks very, very quickly, because banks are very hungry as of today to showcase, because UPI is one example which banking ecosystem have made available, and it is the most successful digital transformation which everybody have seen in the world. Now banks, once they have kind of express this kind of a success in their endeavor, now they want to see that we should be able to do a better customer experience. So in coming days, there's a lot of work which is being done by a lot of banks in the background. You would see some of the banks, and Mahesh is over here, good friend, right? And they have been doing something. Large banks have also started doing a lot of things, wherein a customer experience, so customer centricity has become the major, kind of a point wherein banks are trying to drive this green initiative. So it's a win-win situation for both the customer as well as the banks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, so it is serious business. Some banks are taking baby steps. Green banking is what consumers are very aware of. What are some of your views?
Yeah, good morning. And I think ESG has now become a fairly involved and mandated ask. So if you look at, there are KPIs which are tracked at the board level, which is where you now are no longer taking it as one more action to be taken, but there is a very clear action plan that is essentially driven from top down. So you have KPIs that are tracked at the CEO level, at the various senior leadership level, in terms of how does ESG really play into the overall game plan for the bank. So when you look at that, now the business side of the story, obviously, if you look at the corporate side, when you lend to the corporate, it is very important for you to have a key parameter on how the corporate to whom you're lending has an ESG game plan. Because then you're able to, or you are collaborating with that lender, with that to whom you're lending, to be able to do better from an ESG perspective. So that's one big one that we essentially started to adopt. Now, it's not easy, but there is competition, so we'll have to start to adopt on that game plan. The other area, when you look at social banking, where you lend, how you lend, to whom you lend, it's very, very important for us to do that. Very, very important for us to understand whom are we, what is the purpose that the person is involved, and if it is associated with the environmental, then how do you lend better? Are there better parameters that you could probably do from your scoring perspective to able to help that? The third thing is essentially when you look at the other support leverage systems like technology and everything, who also have, by the way, I also have a KPI associated with it. And that is because in terms of what you procure to service, how do you deliver the service? So can you do more digital rather than doing paper? Simple things like that, right? And more importantly, in terms of the data centers. Data centers are massive consumers of power. So effectively, we very closely engage with our data center service providers, and in our selection, as we migrate out to some newer data centers, that's a very, very important criteria, very important criteria. And last but not the least, I think it is about how you even use your own office space. That's very important. Today, we all love to live in an aircon environment. And there is plenty of light available today. So how do you really manifest all of this into saving more electricity while you get digital? And how do you, more importantly, reuse those digital assets more effectively? Today you use and throw is a big, big problem statement, which essentially is also complicating situations. So to me, I think ESG is not just about what you do from your own CSR activity, but it goes much more deeper into an organization's ethos and DNA. And I think today banking, we see it at a board level, and that's very appreciative. And because it is being tracked, it's no longer by the way action. It has absolutely gone into every piece of, I would say, business lines, support systems, everything that we do. So I would say holistically, we are yet starting the journey. We're still not there. but that's understanding of the, I would say, the importance, understanding that you need to adopt it, and how to manifest it is obviously going to be a journey. It's not like a click of a button or a snap of a finger. It's going to take some time. But the good part is we are there. We're starting to. That's how I'd call it.
Great, fantastic. It's very reassuring to note that this is being discussed right up at the board, and so there is significant top management commitment to ESG and sustainable banking. I want to just move to Prasanna, my friend and fellow panelist here, from DCB's perspective, and you're also a thought leader in the industry. Is this something that is discussed in technology, steerings, board strategies, and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So very good morning, everybody, and good to be here at the TRESCON's event. So I think what Mahesh sir spoke about, or Amit, I think most of the banks are now on that league that there has to be some responsibility towards SDGs or ESGs. So SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which is primarily the term coined in 2015, since UN has announced this agenda of 17 sustainable goals by 2030 every country has to meet. And ESG is all about how corporates can really support this agenda. How there are a lot of new business models coming up. So while DCB is one of those banks which is heavily investing onto the CSR activities around water conservation or saving water, at least more than 200 CSR projects around water we had done last couple of years. Some of them are Wagah border, some of them are water projects in Hyderabad. So this will continue, and what I look at it, it's now a responsibility for every company, and some of the new business model like those carbon exchanges or providing those carbon credits. So you being your company maybe in India, but you can really buy it out carbon credit, somebody is in Korea or Singapore, and so on. So these are the new norms are coming in. But overall, what you said about digital banking, maybe it was yesterday traditional, today it's digital. Maybe we'll have an intelligent banking with a lot of new technologies, or it could be an autonomous banking down the line 5 to 6 years. While we are doing too much of automation, we need to really see what is that you are giving back to the society, because this is the same society we're going to live in 2030 or 2040. So I think that's the agenda. Every bank is investing a little bit of their pie, and let's look forward how it will become a prominent business model. So I'll not be surprised in the next 5 years, there will be some of those clean tech companies will become unicorns. So I'm closely working with some of them who can really come up and tell you that, okay, by so much time, this particular building will have a sustainable model. Right, so that kind of a technology is coming in now with AI, ML, and there are other industry 4 revolutionary technologies. So this is something new, and not surprising what we are doing with fintech, which is a necessity around payments, lending, but what is largely necessity for humankind. So that those kind of initiatives and those kind of companies will have a larger game in the future. So that is why it is necessary for banks, government also to see how prominent role they can have in this whole process. Yeah.
Very good, very nice. I want to move to something a little more interesting, a little more lighter on what we call as the metaverse. I don't know how many of you know, but there are some banks like JP Morgan that claims to be the first to set up space in metaverse. There's a shopping district in Decentraland, and if you are familiar with Decentraland, you can look up coordinates 9022, walk up to the Onyx JP Morgan Experience Lounge. And I actually did it about a few months ago when they launched, about I think 4-5 months ago when they launched. I actually popped around to see what it was. It's just nothing but a virtual space, and you can walk around. There's 2 televised presentations that goes on in the background. There's a lady that's sitting in that will pop into your avatar, for example, and there are some tigers that are roaming around, and of course JP Morgan's blockchain roadmap is something that you can see on the wall hanging. That's about it. Nothing fancy, but they seem to have a presence. Closer back home, we have Union Bank that recently announced a partnership with a startup company, and they seem to have some presence there where they're showcasing their products and services. So I actually want to ask the panel what they think of what metaverse is, starting from Amit, and then we'll go around the table. Is this another buzzword, one of those marketing gimmicks? What do you think?
Yeah, sure. And metaverse, when it was first introduced, it was in gaming itself, right? So people say we would juxtapose virtual reality. But if you see, BFSI have never thought of that, and now banks have started talking about it. It's a very real kind of a thing. Metaverse is something which can have a lot of use cases, wherein it can be implemented. Consider for a second that all the banks have to send in the people to their SMEs or agriculture units, wherein they have to find out the yield of a crop. Per year, they can, how much of a loan can be given to a customer. But if you take metaverse over there, what you can do is taking the historical data from last couple of years, what has been a yield in that region, you can do a projection, what would be the yield for this year, right? So that's a virtual, and you add drones to it, you capture real-time data, and then you can juxtapose it with the virtual information which is made available to you from a last couple of years or quarters. So there are a lot of use cases. Metaverse is an emerging kind of a thing. Most of the people are trying to find it out. Now, Anil from Union Bank, they have launched a metaverse. So banks have started working towards it. The future would lie. So technology is something which needs to be embraced with how well it can be used, not for the sense of it that because it's a newer technology, right? I'm a great supporter of all technology is good enough, but maybe not every technology can be implemented as of today. And metaverse, as we see, you would see in coming days as more and more people and technology companies. I see some of my old friends also over here. You would see when all these industry partners start partnership with banks in trying to, first of all, educate them about what's a use case, because use case is needed to be defined first of all, right? Technology can be applied to any use case. Technology is just a medium to, reach the ends itself, right? Technology is not in itself a panacea to solve all the problems, right? So if banks would find out something which is a doable kind of a thing, so I don't think so that it's a keyword as of today, but as we move forward, it's in nascent stage. But there are a lot of companies, and we have been consulting with a lot of companies, not over in India, but from outside of India. And they have been doing some of a great job with respect to, certainly US have done some good things in metaverse itself. India would start looking at those solutions, maybe in fall winter quarter itself. We would start seeing some of the banks taking that plunge.
Great. So you actually put the onus back on business and product. It's this the use case. Technology is just the enabler. What do you think, Prasanna?
I think
you followed this around for quite a while.
Yeah, I think what we have seen, I agree with Amit what he spoke about. What we have seen largely last 20 years, I think traditional banking, you had to reach there and do the banking, right? Now you're carrying your bank in mobile and internet banking wherever you're around, laptops or computers. So metaverse is another way of communicating or another way of interface to avail services. Could be banking, healthcare, or any of those services. And why all of a sudden it is coming up? Because 5G is going to come, there are wearables, and moreover, customer behavior is changing now. Post-pandemic, we have seen they are looking for, wherever they go, they want everything out there. And what the kind of a research is happening in this area is a phenomenal. I think although it is at that level, we yet to see a large scale metaverse where we can really communicate the way we are communicating right now in this physical environment. There are some 10-12 platforms primarily into gaming, and some of them are into, we spoke about Sandbox, where HSBC has done some kind of experiment having their own land. So the way we had websites, our own website and traction around website and the user flow towards Google or any of those websites, similarly we'll see the lot of chunk will or a customer base will go towards metaverse. So it is an advantage for some of those companies like Facebook or Meta to build another ecosystem. Or what Jio is doing today, they are going to announce a Meta University, right, for students out there. So I think every business model will go eventually on a metaverse, because it's like a next level of a 3D internet. Some of those use cases, like where Union Bank of India has done some awareness of some products. Video KYC can be done on a metaverse once you have a better latency through 5G. You can do the payments of UPI also, because it's just a collect request you can put in. A lot of payment companies are also now seeing how they can integrate into the metaverse. Large problem will be where one metaverse has to talk to another metaverse, which is that problem we already resolved in a web, wherein we have a lot of standards. So I think that is why I think 30 companies came together recently, like Microsoft and Google's and so on, and they are creating this interoperability protocols on a metaverse. So I think it's good to see some of the banks are coming up with the metaverse platforms. While metaverse will get mature, I think we'll see larger use cases. Some of the use cases, matured use cases in gaming, tokenizing real estates, so that sitting here, I can really see what is going to be there tomorrow's structure. Or there are some spiritual buildings, they are getting tokenized under NFT and metaverse, so that their devotees sitting in US can feel, yeah, they are entering some of those temples and so on. So this is happening now. Reality is now, virtual reality has become now actually real reality. Metaverse was always there in form of a virtual or augmented reality, but with a combination of which Amit spoke, right? Combination of other technologies like blockchain or 5G, or you talk about AR, VR primarily, and there are some traction of IoT devices which will have that experience to get into that, right? So I think that will bring on large scale adoption of a metaverse. What we have seen with the feature phones followed by smartphones, I think future is with those glasses, right? So wherein based upon I think once those will become more cheaper, I think more and more adoption will happen. And by the time, let's see how 5G will become actual technology for all of us. I think interesting time ahead. More work for us and more work for a regulator also. How do we regulate metaverse if something goes wrong, or how do we really have a better standards platforms? Yeah.
Hey, interesting you say that's, spiritual places of worship. I can immediately think of a use case that, somebody will come up with, let's say the Mumbai Cha Raja or Siddhi Vinayak on Metaverse, for example. Mahesh, any of this fancy, your brain, you have a typical classical view of life, so.
So I think, while I do agree with what Amit and Prasanna are talking about in terms of technology is evolving quite rapidly. The infrastructure to support that technology and the imagination of what we need to use it more constructively to help, from a banking perspective, help our clients, help our businesses is very critical. We could possibly, from technology perspective, we can think of a lot of use cases. But I would say that a good use case to start with is, at the end of the day, can you use a personal financial manager? Because today, very simplistically put, if we are able to get some of these technologies to do some back-end analytics, present it runtime, present it more in terms of how you engage with the customer, and create a virtual branch, and that virtual branch essentially gives more rooms that is available to customers in their own privacy to give personal financial support. I think it will help, because at the end of the day, we are in a business of helping not only to keep the money and grow the money. And that trust factor is very important. So when you say trust look at the customer's point of view, the trust is very important. And for that, the regulations, the controls, the authentication that is required. Because at the end of the day, is that you've not seen spoofing around, but it will end up. You'll have a new word cropping up very soon. And then you will say, hey, XYZ has just come in, impersonated, and moved forward. So I think it's a great story at this moment. Good use cases, some very innovative use cases like what Amit mentioned, Prasanna mentioned. We'll have to start nibbling away at it. We cannot go full hog. All of us are looking today to create those, I would say, Me Too approaches. I'm being upfront about it. We are all trying to do Me Toos rather than doing out of the box. But yes, you will experiment in non-financials to begin with, customer service and all those areas, and then begin to include the financial aspect of the transactions and engagements. I think look forward when 5G and everything gets rolled out in the next couple of years. Now there's a lot of work happening here with Amit Shop. So I think we do see some 18, 24 months, some really innovative stuff coming through the game. And that's going to probably change certain aspects of how we do banking. Today we are all talking mobile. Tomorrow probably I'm seeing something else. It transforms itself into something new. And technology, we keep ourselves busy with this innovation, which is fantastic. As long as it helps human being evolve and make it more meaningful for our life, fantastic.
Great. Since you talked about something new, I want to just segue into the world of blockchain. Dr. Rajan talked about the 12-page paper, and I'll try and keep the controversy out of it and not talk about crypto, but just the power of the technology called blockchain. And who better than Prasanna? You and I have been in many forums. You are part of many blockchain forums in the industry. We've had conversations with Professor Damodaran from IIT, IIIT, where they were trying to work on building a blockchain to solve video KYC as a reusable digital asset. So, Prasanna, what I have learned and understood, the best use case or the best, let's say, the consideration point for blockchain in my mind is what's called as a fit model, which is blockchain is very useful in industries where the fraud rates are relatively high. There's heavy intermediation, and throughput is something that is important. How do you first see this technology in banking and financial services, and how do you see blockchain being implemented to combat frauds in specific?
I think wonderful. I think most of the answers you have answered in your questions. So thank you so much. And we have Amit out here, who is really driving RBI Innovation Hub with a larger agenda of how blockchain can become a mainstream technology for banks. And we have seen how Yes Bank also implemented one of their prominent use cases on supply chain with one of the large company in Bajaj, I guess. Yes, I think if you look at a blockchain, is a foundational technology, is not a disruptive technology which will come and just like a smartphone, it will do lots of applications for us in the next couple of years. It's a foundational technology, and every foundational technology takes its own time. What internet has took some time, right? So internet was always there with ARPANET and some of those protocols, but primarily when internet came in 1995, at least in India, since then we have seen it took 20-25 years to bring on UPI. Or any of those Paytms, Google Pay, Phone Pay, and the journey will be wonderful on top of that internet here onwards. Blockchain is another foundational technology which will come and change the way we operate, communicate, transform the data, transfer the value, and so on. Now, primarily what internet couldn't do, or internet had its own challenge around, we don't know, like from where I'm ordering food, or who are all those intermediaries, so-called associations like NPCI and Visa, right, which we have created in the form of sending that payment request from one bank to another bank. So I think if you look at the overall traction, how blockchain brings us a decentralized world without intermediaries in between, or without a need of people out there, or it brings autonomous organization, so decentralized autonomous organization. And since rise of a Bitcoin, which is one of those smallest use case of a blockchain kind of a technology, it has given a lot of traction around how technology can be utilized. So blockchain one is around all those cryptos. Most of these use cases are not for banks, or not for healthcare, or not for largely every citizen out there in India. What we are looking at is a blockchain 2.0, which are enterprise, private network use cases, and which will bring a lot of great progress for country like India or every country out there. Example, Estonia was one of those countries was about to get vanished from the map. But now they are one of those templates for other country to see how we can implement more than 290 plus governance public sector use cases, right? Or similarly, what Dubai is doing, the smart Dubai vision with AI and the blockchain kind of technology. Similarly, we can also look at how those 300, 400 use cases where a lot of corruption happens or a lot of intermediaries are there, and how we do it in a smarter way. Because blockchain is a technology which offers a decentralized way. There are some concepts like smart contract which doesn't need any of those paper-based contracts. So just look at what internet had those inabilities. Automatically blockchain comes and says that yes, I am those technology, adopt me heavily with a better regulation, with a better governance, then I can do a lot of wonders. Right? So what wonders we can look at it? You spoke about one use case where a person comes and do a KYC with one bank, and that KYC is available with another bank in a fraction of a minute or second, the way we have that network speed. Today we have eKYC followed by CKYC. Tomorrow decentralized KYC backed by blockchain, which will always incentivize by eKYC, Aadhaar or CKYC. But largely it will be helpful for other bank to avoid that INR. Typically it takes 5,000 to 10,000 rupees to open one bank account, right? Which involves back office process. And we never know whether that customer is a primary customer or not. Just imagine for all of us, your account is already being opened, or which is KYC is already being done. We just have to give a consent for another bank B. We are going to save so much of cost for a country like India for one use case. Now imagine if you bring on cross-border payment where it takes 7 days or 3 days, or trade finance, which is largely heavy duty operational exercise, or likewise in a banking, if you come and sit with us in the bank, we'll be able to identify more than 60, 70 use cases which we not thought of. Yeah, blockchain can come and really help, like inspection process or audit process, and there are many more processes where we can really slowly automate that man in between. Reconciliation process, right? Bitcoin or crypto doesn't need reconciliation, but can you imagine the kind of investment we had done so far? So slowly we'll go there, but it will take its own time, which priority use case we will do for a banking ecosystem. But it's not only banking, everywhere internet is there, prominently blockchain will fit into in certain areas like identity or supply chain or traceability. These are the 2-3 areas where we need some kind of automation. So I think in every use case where there are more than 2 stakeholders, could be people or machines, you will need some kind of automation. Blockchain comes and I can say it will deliver many more use cases. I think good to see some of the experiments in Indian context like bank chain. We had some consortium of 36 members, including some banks. So consortium kind of a power when comes, we will have a better use case of blockchain rather than individual bank doing like we did. But every bank has its own way to adopt. But largely where I think RBI Innovation Hub will become a prominent backbone for Indian economy and Indian banking ecosystem. How do we adopt a blockchain from awareness to the experimentation to the actual use cases like LCBG or interoperability of blockchain? So at this stage, blockchain still have some dilemmas or trilemmas. Security, interoperability, speed, but the kind of research which is happening at a Hyperledger or Quorum, and there are many more new platforms are coming in. I think this will evolve. The way we have evolved internet from MS-DOS to Windows, so far now it is a smartphone. Similarly, I think this will also evolve. So that's what I always say. Today we are a digital banking, but tomorrow's intelligent followed by autonomous banking will be always powered by AI and blockchain together in the backend. So I think, and good to see country like India is really adopting in form of some national strategies there with the MITI. There are, telecom is the one industry who has already adopted. So every SMS we receive from banks is already filtered at SMS gateways, which is blockchain powered. Healthcare, there are many more industries adopting. I think Amit can add on value. He is a flag bearer out there in India to bring on that adoption heavily in a banking ecosystem. So look forward, in the next couple of years, we'll have some very good use cases which will drive larger banking ecosystem. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Amit, you want to add what are how are these imperatives for you in the RBI Innovation Hub?
Right, and I would talk it from an aspect that when it comes to blockchain, it's a most talked about topic than of the most understood topic, right? So the base for having a blockchain. So we always ask this question, why do you need a blockchain, right? The most of the question comes in, it's a technology, you have got, everybody in the consortium or network would come to know about it. But we did an exercise with 11 banks. We have concluded a POC on an interoperable DLT platform, which has been very successfully done with all the banks. I see some of the banks who have participated sitting in the audience also over here. So the whole concept revolves around that if you do a transaction, how do you measure it, that whether it's completed successfully or not successfully? There are only two ways of knowing it. It's a way of proof of value or proof of work. So if you are able to measure any one of them, so different blockchain platforms work on different concepts. There has been certain, views with respect to whether this kind of a system is a scalable system or it won't be a scalable system, right? The other part of the question is, and we tried answering all those questions when we have done a proof of concept with 3 of the fabric providers. And we have taken the learning from all across the world, what the banks have been doing, right? So Italian Banking Association, they have implemented a reconciliation on a single fabric, right? And then there are other consortiums, and Prasanna have touched upon few of them. So Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub works on 3 pillars. First is the innovation, the second is the impact, and the third one is the inclusion itself. So when it comes for looking at innovation, we work with the startup world, we work with all the banks, and we work with all the regulated entities also, including of IDRBT and NPCI. So we should be able to have a single view with respect to, so the convergence of view is very much important for us. We work towards it so that either banks or either anybody who is trying to do that work, a single convergent view should be made available. And everybody should agree this makes sense, that we should do this, and this would help the whole ecosystem. The second part of the story is that once you have identified that, then what's an impact for that, right? So without an impact, you try doing something that won't scale up, right? There should be an impact to whatever we are trying to achieve. The third part is the inclusion. We are very passionate about 2 things. We ran a program which is a Swanari program, because we want to bring in women entrepreneurs, startups, to come in forefront, to become unicorns by themselves. And some of the banks have helped us as a scale-up partner for the solutions what we have selected. They are now we are building up those solutions, and banks would act as a scale-up partner for implementing such solution. The inclusion part also include that the last mile, the person, we all sit in Mumbai and big cities and didn't understand whether a digital transaction can be done by a person who is 150 kilometers away from Mumbai. You would still see cash. NPCI have introduced a very wonderful solution, UPI 123. We are looking towards that kind of a solution to be introduced, and we are very much focused with respect to agriculture, wherein we can, and we are working along with banks so that we should be able to give that kind of a solution, scalable kind of a thing. So most of the banks have got their ABU or a agriculture business unit, and they are lending loans, right? It's a tedious process. It takes a lot of time. We are trying to see, we are working with one of the bank. You would see that solution coming in a couple of weeks' time, which has been implemented. And a lot of other banks have also shown interest to take up that kind of a solution to scale up. So that's what we are trying to do. We ring fence whole of the ecosystem with the thought leadership. And it's not our thought leadership only, right? We do a consultation with all the leaders, like Mahesh is here, Prasanna is there are lot many outside there in the audience. We take their views with respect to, we are always in touch, we are always talking to them, we are asking them what what are their views with respect to what needs to change in the ecosystem, and we see to it that if it's a product innovation, process innovation and policy innovation. Policy innovation does not really mean a regulator policy intervention. What we do, we look at it from a policy perspective, that what's good to have and how banks should agree, because all the stakeholder, the biggest stakeholder in the ecosystem is banks itself. When they suggest something, so we do take the inputs and pass it on to the right set of people. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, great. Significant takeaways in terms of what RBI Innovation Hub is doing and how you're fostering innovation, sustainability, embracing emerging technology. So that's great to hear, Amit. Thanks for sharing your views. I just want to, my next question is to Mahesh, and this one is, it's almost, a follow-up to what Amit talked about. But are incumbent banks really ready for, the uptake on innovation? We as banks have baggage, we have technical debt, we have spaghetti, technology architecture that we, tend to carry at least half a decade, into any refresh cycles. And then a few years back, we had this wave of neobanks, right, which are just pure play digital only banks that just ride the wave of latest technology. That some of the incumbent banks, find it a bit difficult to just embrace right away. And there were reports that the neobanks, of course, they don't have the license, but they will just piggy ride on a traditional bank. But the CAGR was 5, 10%, 20%. We had the likes of Monzo in UK, Kaim in US, N26 in Europe. We had Uno, which is, a story close home. So how do you see this, Mahesh? Is this a threat that you see? I mean, there is, on one hand, the policymaker is trying to, push a lot of innovation, and there's the industry that's providing all the tech enablements. But what's your take on how some of the existing banks, what do we need to pull up our socks?
I think it's a very loaded question, so I probably will first start off by saying a lot of what I'm going to talk is my personal view based on my experience of engaging here. But yes, it is pretty good. It is pretty imperative that all of us, whether it is in the financial services industry, have to adopt change. Because you have to adopt change. You have to adopt change to survive. But you have to define yourself a purpose. You have to define yourself what you need to do in a very vast ecosystem. Right? That's very critical. Otherwise, you can't be a me too across everything. That never really gels well. There are some big players in the market. There are lower players in the market. So neobanks actually have, so coming to a very specific question, the way I look at it, Deepak, is neobanks have captured a space or are coming into a space where there is a lack of, where there was obviously lack of empathy towards the customer in terms of a service and in providing a bouquet of services to our customers, right? Most banks believe that what they do is what they do right. What they didn't realize is the customer probably can look beyond. And with the advent of capabilities emerging on the mobile and on the net, I think there was always that niche available. There was always that space. So neobanks actually have challenged the banks to think differently in terms of how you should be servicing a customer. Clearly, I think that's a fantastic wake-up call, but that wake-up call does not mean that we treat them as competition. To me, I think that begets every bank to really introspect itself to say, how do I use the neobank capability? How do I use the kind of capabilities that each of these specific B2C organizations have built out to extend reach or to extend distribution and to expand its offerings, Ultimately, it's very, very important. When I look at, as a regulator perspective, the regulator says, you know, you are a regulated entity. Who owns the customer? It starts there. And every question comes down to that one simple ask. Who owns the customer? Does it the bank or is it the neobank? Okay. So if it is a bank, then the bank needs to have full control of understanding of what is happening from a service perspective. So I think neobanks can be a great outreach, can be a great horizontal leverage capabilities into product integrations across the board. But where we will always have challenges, the collaboration needs to be very tightly stitched up from a data governance perspective, from a perspective of privacy, protection of privacy, and more importantly, establishing trust. Because today a person, a customer at the front end keeps money in the bank or keeps money anywhere, which is virtual or whatever, with the expectation that it is safe, with the expectation that he authorizes or gives a pseudo authorization to make it happen. So I think that collaboration, I wouldn't call it a threat, simply put, but I would call a very meaningful collaboration to expand and both vertical and horizontal is very, very important. And banks today, whether they have legacy infrastructure, legacy applications, legacy security, any which ways they have to redesign their architecture. I think RBI and the regulators and other entities are making it amply clear by virtue of the measurement of how they do on the KRIs. I think that's fantastic. Now they've also really done some fantastic and brilliant work, which puts us all in stress. I'm not saying no. But it also means that if we look at it with a bit of an open heart, I think it helps us pave our way better. That's the way I would put it.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. It's all about the customer trust collaboration at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you so much, Mahesh. Thank you so much, Prasanna. It was a wonderful panel. Always a pleasure, hosting it for TrestCon, and always a pleasure to interact with you guys. And back to Bhavna.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let's give them a huge round of applause.